Hello everyone, greetings from beautiful Boise, Idaho. Today I will talk about evaluator advocacy with you. I would like to thank Barbara Rosenstein for inviting me to talk at your conference. It's a big thrill for me and I'm really excited about it. I will be available after the presentation to answer your questions over Skype. Let's talk about evaluator advocacy. Basically, anytime we do any kind of promotion of our evaluation work, that's evaluator advocacy. We are advocating for our evaluation. Anytime if we have to defend our methodology and our evaluation conclusions and findings and recommendations to the critics, we are being advocate for our evaluations. That's, in summary, is the definition. So in 2002, I started working for the Office of the Performance Evaluations for Idaho Legislature. I was hired as the second director of this office. The office was established in 1994. When I came to this office, it was following the old classical evaluation performance auditing model, where evaluators saw themselves working on an island, working in a silo, that there are only three bodies that exist, basically the evaluators or evaluation office, the agents oversight body that assigned them to work on a particular evaluation, and the agency or the program that they are reviewing it. But the real life is different. That's just a misconception. If you are an evaluator, you are being influenced and affected by outside forces, surrounding forces all the time. The key stakeholders that we are going to evaluate, we have also the executive branch agencies, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the leadership of the legislature, the other legislative staff, the public, the lobbyists, the press. All of them have some influence on the work that we do and whether or not our work will be used by anybody and whether or not our work is seen as credible. So based on my 12 years of experience working in Idaho, I thought it'll be good to share that work, and I wrote an article for the American Journal of Evaluation called it Evaluator Advocacy, It's All in a Day's of Work. I basically talked about how I did evaluator advocacy and without compromising evaluation standards, without compromising my independence. After that article was published, the electronic version in April, I wrote a blog, guest blog in Evaluspheric Perspectives, where I basically summarized that article and talked about some of the activities that we do to advocate for our evaluation work. If you use the word evaluation advocacy or evaluator advocacy, people get all excited about it. There are three kinds of people in any evaluation setting: those who do evaluator advocacy, those who want to avoid it totally, and the third group is somewhere in between. The reason for so many people who want to avoid evaluation advocacy is because they say, we are independent evaluators. We need to do our work the right way and let everything else take care of itself. It's not our job, it's not our responsibility to be an advocate. They are concerned about the risk that it takes, because when you are doing evaluator advocacy, you have to come in contact with the policymakers, with the press, with the public, with the lobbyists, with the stakeholders. And they are afraid of that because they think that our job is not to do all that. Our job is to work and choose perfect methodology, do the evaluation work, talk to various people involved in the program, but not to worry about the policymakers and the press and the lobbyists. They see that has a lot of risk that could ruin their credibility. And once an evaluator sees that his or her credibility is lost, that could cost them their job. That could cost them their livelihood, or just the reputation could affect their business as a consultant. But I see this thing slightly different. I see this thing as everything in life has some risk. A lot of good things have lots of risk. We ride in the car every day. Every year, thousands of people die in car accidents, but we still use cars to go to our work and go to other places using cars. We travel for vacations. And we do that because we know that the benefits are way more than the risk, and we know how to manage that risk. Same can be said for evaluation. And if we manage that risk, we'll see tremendous benefits because I believe if we want to change the world, if we want to have a sustainable, equitable future, if we want to make a difference in the lives of people through our evaluation work, we have no choice but to interact with other groups. Am I not afraid of losing my own job? Am I not concerned about losing my credibility if I get into some of the political situation by doing advocacy work? Yes, I'm concerned about it, but I do draw a lot of inspiration and a lot of courage and a lot of good ideas from the life of Mahatma Gandhi. His life taught us several things. Understand the context of any work that you do. You need to understand the context. You just don't jump in and do that work. He always believed in taking calculated risk. If you read any book on Gandhi, you will see that all his life he took very calculated risk in everything that he did. He always was a firm believer in keeping the process transparent. If people know you are honest to them, people know your process is clear and clean and transparent, people will start trusting you. Every big thing he did, he worked very well with the media. He worked very well with the press. And on every major event that he organized, the press was always there. So I see that evaluation work deals with making a difference, influencing the public policy, and making a change. Then drawing some parallels from Gandhi's life make perfect sense to me. During legislative session, I make a point to go to the state capitol every day for somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour and a half. Whether I have a meeting with somebody or not, I will always go to the capitol. It's about 2-block distance. Not very, it takes me 5 minutes to get from my office to the capitol. But once I get to the capitol, I meet all kinds of people. I meet policymakers. This gives me an opportunity to talk to them, and it gives them an opportunity to ask me questions about our office. Also, it gives me an opportunity to ask them questions about the evaluation projects that I'm working on. I want to be seen by them, and I want to see them. I want to learn from them, and I want to educate them about evaluation. Keep legislative leadership informed. They need to know. We work for the legislature. Legislative leadership manages all the policy issues in the state capitol that they deal with. So they need to know what we are doing, what we plan to do, and they should not be surprised by any of the things that we do. So I take every opportunity to talk to them about the work we are doing, the work we have done, and what they can expect in the coming months. They know they can trust me. I know I can trust them, and in the end, there are no surprises. Likewise, we need to keep the stakeholders involved. The stakeholders, of course, are the agencies that we evaluate, the client of those agencies, the end users, in some cases, the general public. And even I'll call the press as a stakeholder, because the press has the stake in our work, because press's job is to communicate what is happening in terms of policy making and the evaluation to the public. We need to inform them in various settings, in various forums, but the best way to inform them is through newsletters and also through these daily sojourns. When we go and talk to them, we can talk to them in the state capitol. We need to make sure we take opportunity to educate policymakers and other stakeholders about evaluation. Most people don't know what evaluation is. They don't know what the American Evaluation Association is. It's our job to explain to them what evaluation is and how we do it, what it means to do an evaluation project. What are the sideboards? What are the guidelines? What are the standards that we must follow? The other thing we do is we assist policymakers with their evaluation requests. Because policymakers either don't have time or they don't know enough about evaluation, what we can do is I can make myself available to go and talk to them and let them know that I'm available to help them with drafting their evaluation request. As a matter of fact, yesterday I sent letters to legislative leadership and the policy and budget committee chairs about offering my help and assistance for them to draft their request if they choose to do so. And as part of that, I'll be working with those legislators if they have any issues that they want us to address through evaluation, and we will do some background work to help them frame their request, frame their questions that are doable through evaluation. So we don't want to produce an evaluation report after 9 months or 1 year that did not answer their questions, or the answer was not obtainable or achievable considering the type of data is kept, or some of the times a question may not mean much once the answer is given to that question because the question was not framed correctly. Last July, I felt like there was something I didn't do right in last 12 years, and that was I always took it for granted that my oversight committee, the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee, knows who we are, knows what we do, and how we do it, and why we do it. And through various conversations with my committee members, especially my committee co-chairs, I found no, they do not know everything, and I should have been talking to them about it. So that was a mistake on my part, or oversight on my part. And so I took the time in July to talk to them about our operations. So what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, and why it is important the way we do it. And then I thought, well, it'll be good to share that information, share that experience with other evaluators. So I wrote a blog for the Evaluation Capacity Development Group. I talked about, as part of my daily sojourns, I talked about building relationship, establishing relationship, building trust. Some of my staff is working with several people from an agency that we recently evaluated, the agency being the Department of Health and Welfare. That agency is the biggest agency in the state in terms of the size and terms of the budget. It has more than $2.5 billion budget, and it has more than 3,000 employees there. It has a very complex budget, and policymakers were having difficulty in understanding how various funds move within that agency in terms of who uses what funds and what time, and what results were obtained from that fund. So they asked us to look into it. Is there any better way to explain the movement of funds within the Department of Health and Welfare? And that was a complex project, and we were able to successfully complete that project. And one thing we used we used Sankey diagrams to explain the movement of funds. And until then, department was not aware of Sankey diagrams, and the department had tried to help explain the movement of funds to the policymakers, but they were not successful. Then the department official wanted to use our report for training purposes, and also wanted to learn how we use those Sankey diagrams to analyze their budget. And so in this picture, some of the staff from the senior staff from the Department of Health and Welfare came to our office to learn how to use Sankey diagrams. After they were done, they bought several licenses of Sankey software, and now they are using it in their operations. In government setting, evaluators are not seen as someone to welcome by agency officials, because they think evaluators will come and only criticize them or talk about negative things. And but here, the Department of Health and Welfare did ask us to help them with some training. And what it does is that it builds relationship, it builds trust, and now it's working together rather than it's us versus them. And so I wanted to point it out, and these are small things that we do whenever that happens, whenever the opportunity arises. But these small things over 2, 5, 10, or in my case 12 years, they do help build good relationships, help build the trust that is needed for us to succeed in the policy environment. The next picture is slide we show is the slide about our committee meeting where we are issuing a report. As you can see, the room is pretty big. We didn't need that big room, but the reason we used that big room because that is one of the only 2 rooms in the state capitol that can have live audio and video streaming of our presentations. And I want to make sure our report, our evaluation findings, our evaluation recommendations are reaching out to the people. They know what's happening. They can get this information firsthand. Of course, press is there in these meetings, but not always. And sometimes members of the press cannot come to the meeting, but they are still available in their hometown or in their offices. And through this live streaming, they can listen and then write a story about it. So that's why whenever we have any report release, we always make sure it takes place in one of those 2 rooms which have a live audio and video streaming. So we talked about the press, we talked about reaching out to the people, we talked about the risk of doing advocacy work. Here is an example of, we issued a report on recruitment, retention, and turnover of public school teachers. And that evaluation took place in a very difficult time in terms of there was a lot of controversy relating to those issues. So when we issued that report, press picked up on the findings and conclusions and recommendations of report, and we got a big heading in the newspaper. Getting a heading above the fold is a great thing. We all were very happy, but a couple days later, things turned differently because now those people who did not like our report's findings and recommendations, they felt that we were wrong and they needed to, our methodology was not correct. And they did not realize, they had read the report, but they did not realize the magnitude of our findings and conclusions until they saw the big heading, because then the public pressure is on them. So they wanted to set the record straight, and I had a meeting with one of the chairmen of Education Committee who did not agree with the findings and conclusions and recommendations of our report. And we had disagreement, and that's okay. We are in this business, and in pretty much anything, there will be times when there will be disagreement. But I had no choice but to defend my team that did the evaluation work, to defend the evaluation approach and the methodologies we used, and our qualification to make those professional judgments, evaluative judgments in our evaluation work. And no matter who is right, no matter who is wrong, we have to live with each other and we have to work with each other. I cannot succeed in a policy environment by having poor relationship with a committee chair. I have to work with him or her. This thing happened in just last July. One of our committee co-chairs was interested in looking into the rules of our office operations, our evaluation procedures. He was interested in discussing ways to improve the quality of our reports, but one way he wanted to improve the quality of our report is by committee reviewing our evaluation reports in advance of their public release. I was afraid that if the committee gets a chance to review the report in advance and then make suggestions to us to make changes, because I work for the committee, I'll be under pressure to yield to them. Or at least if I don't yield to them, the public will perceive that it is a whitewash. So it will politicize the report, and the office will lose its credibility as independent, neutral body. also, not only office and the report will lose its credibility, even the committee that gives us the assignments to work on, the committee will lose its credibility in the eyes of the public. The mission of our office is to promote confidence and accountability in state government, and I think that confidence will be gone if public perceives that our work was not independent and neutral. So here is, I needed to make a stand. This new approach where committee will get to review the report in advance and make suggestions for changes will be detrimental to the credibility of the office report and the committee. And that was a tough discussion for me to do it, because again, this is the committee I work with. I have worked with for a long time, but I had no choice but to make a stand. And I always talk about responsiveness to the stakeholders, and I totally believe in independence, and I believe that you don't have to give up one thing for the other. You can do both. You can maximize both, but there comes a time when you'll have to take a stand. And if you have to take a stand, independence should always win over responsiveness. Our office enjoys tremendous credibility, and that credibility is about that we are independent, objective, and neutral. We are not influenced by party politics. We do thorough work, and we pay attention to detail, and we are responsive. We are responsive to the information needs of the legislature and other stakeholders. Both things have to be done together. Both things have to be maximized. In the old evaluation model, where they are on an island, they think they have to only, for the sake of independence, they cannot get too close to the policymakers and lobbyists and stakeholders and the press. And but the model I suggest, where we do both, we don't have to sacrifice an iota of our independence or compromise. We have to do both, because we cannot conduct evaluation and expect them to be used by public policymakers if we don't understand the evaluation context, if we don't talk to them. I talk about the 4 missing P's. So evaluators are very passionate about changing the world, making the world a better place, having a sustainable, equitable future through their evaluation work. But they also want to maintain their independence, and they feel like their job is not to do anything more than just do the evaluation work. At least many of those evaluators feel that way. So when I go to the evaluation conferences, in those conferences I see lots of people talking about all kinds of methodologies and evaluation results and evaluation work that they have done. But I noticed that I've been going to the American Evaluation Association conference since every year since '94. I have never missed one. I've been presenting every year there. But I see there are 4 things missing there. There is no discussion about politics. There is no discussion about policymakers. There are no policymakers to be seen in the conference. There is no discussion about people, and there is no discussion about the press. We don't want to talk about the politics because we don't want to be tainted by the politics. We feel like if we talk about the politics, we'll lose our credibility. But evaluation is something where we make judgment about the use of resources, whether it's a small program or it's a large program, it's a public policy issue, whether it's a health issue or transportation issue, where ultimately those issues affect the use, distribution, and allocation of those resources, and who get to make those decisions. My mother always used to say that politics will always be there wherever there are 2 people, because 2 people will always be arguing about the use and allocation and distribution of resources, and that's what evaluation is. So We can ignore it, that politics has no place in evaluation, but that's just hurting ourselves. We have to pay attention to it. And to understand the evaluation context, to work with the policymakers, to work with stakeholders, if we understand the politics, we can do a better job in understanding the what questions need to be answered and how they need to be answered. We don't have to take sides. We can always understand it and maintain a distance. For example, I will defend my evaluation work in front of the legislative committee. I'll help policymakers draft their evaluation request. I'll explain to them, I'll brief them about our work, but I never take a side on a piece of legislation. And that's the way you maintain yourself independent and separate from politics, getting involved in the politics. When we hold these conferences, I wonder how many people know, who are working in the hotel where the conference is taking place, what evaluation is. Does the taxi driver who brought you from the airport to the hotel, does he know what evaluation is? The doorman, does he know what evaluation is? The people who are serving meals there, do they know what evaluation is? I bet if you ask them what a teacher is, what an accountant is, what a physician is, what an engineer is, they know all those. They don't have to ask a second question. If you tell them you are a teacher, they might ask you, what subject do you teach, or what grade do you teach, but they would not say, what is a teacher? But if you tell somebody you are an evaluator, they will certainly ask you another question, what is that? In my case, my personal experience, when I tell them they don't understand what it is, but sometimes I'll tell them, oh, I'm a program evaluator. So now with my accent and with my skin of my color, they think I'm from Indian background, so I must be a computer programmer. And I go and check how well the programs are doing, computer programs. So people don't know, and we have been around for a long time. We do great work. We want to make a difference, but general public doesn't know who we are and what we do. I have never seen the member of the press at the evaluation conferences. This year in Denver, we had more than 3,000 people attending the American Evaluation Association's conference. I didn't see any press person. I didn't see any press release that was sent out. And so we came to Denver. We talked about our methodologies. We talked about our evaluation projects. And we left. And probably no one knows that we were there outside the hotel. Policymakers, we don't invite them at the conference because we are afraid that it will politicize the issue. But how could we, if we don't understand what policymakers want, how do we know we are doing things that they can use and that will be helpful to them? They are never to be seen. I'm proud to say that this year in Denver, I invited one legislator from Idaho. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and people enjoyed his presentation. Now there is people who attended that session, they have a better understanding of what policymakers do and what they want, and that policymaker has a better understanding of what evaluation is and what evaluators do. I believe that if we want to make a difference through our evaluation work, we have no choice but to pay attention to these 4 Ps. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about the politics of a subject matter that we are evaluating, a policy we are evaluating. We need to talk about, we need to ask policymakers to understand us. We need to get them involved. We need to get them engaged with what we do. We need to let the public know who we are, what we do. And who else but the press? The press can do a great job for us. They can be a great conduit for us to reach out to the people. It's the people who elect policymakers. It is the policymakers who make policies. Evaluators don't make policies. So if the people understand what we do, they can put pressure on policymakers. We don't have authority to put pressure on policymakers, but people do have the authority to make influence policymakers and put pressure on policymakers. So, but for us to get connected with the people, we do need the press. We need to work with the press to spread the results of our evaluation work and our findings and recommendations. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have. And thank you very much.